Hello Internet and welcome to my review for Boruto Naruto Next Generations episode 86. When we last left our heroes, Boruto and Onoki were stuck on the Sanzu Plains, I believe it was called. They could only escape once Boruto had found his Heartstone through training. Before that could happen, they ran into Seki, a young stone ninja who Boruto had briefly met during the tuning exams um, several dozen episodes ago. Um, and through working with him, he found his Heartstone, allowing Boruto and Onoki to escape. And then Onoki said that he would take Boruto to a place where Boruto would learn all about Onoki's truest, or finally get to the heart of Onoki's true intentions. And meanwhile, the synthetics learned that they would only be able to survive if they had a human heart, like transplanted from an actual human. Um, and so, with that knowledge, they realized they did not have much time to start taking over the Stone Village, and that's where they leave off. So before we get into the review proper, just a reminder, I have my straw poll for the winter anime season in the description of the video down below. So please fill that out and then come watch the rest of the video, if you please. So yeah, anyway, moving on to the review proper. So we open with Ku very quickly taking over the Stone Village. It takes all of a minute for him to completely have control of the village. And Ku makes a quick mention to this, like, oh, is this how the village is turned into with Kurotsuchi's leadership? But it's odd that there is so little resistance to Ku's rise, right? Like, sure, we do find out there are some people that are rebelling, and then they're all arrested and all of that. But it's weird that it works so well, you know. Like maybe it ties into what Anoki's been saying about the current state of the stone, but it's just weird, is all, you know. Um, but yeah, other than that, most of the episode, or most of what I have to talk, that's really all I have to say, pretty much entirely on the Ku side of things. Shikamaru's escaped and is slouching around the village all shady-like. But the real crux of the episode is everything with Boruto and Onoki. We start out with a long flashback about Kozuchi, who had briefly been referred to both in 71 and I think very briefly last episode. Um, but yeah, we have how he died, and how it was not this incident with the rogue ninjas attacking the village that led to the Akuta's creation, but Kozuchi's death. Or maybe Kozuchi's death and that incident are the same thing. I'm not quite sure, but it doesn't really matter enough for me to really be too upset by it. It doesn't. That's a shrug kind of plot hole. I don't really care if it is a plot hole at all. Again, but anyway, Kozuchi's a cute enough kid and all, and his earnestness is warming, and he's very Naruto light. But he's not really enough of a character to get the pathos I feel that they were trying to wring out of him. It just didn't really. Kozuchi's death was not really, and besides being a cute kid dying, which of course is always going to be a bit of a tearjerker, he just wasn't really enough of a character to really warrant that. But what did work was Onoki's guilt from the realization that it was what Onoki said about a Tsuchikage always standing their ground. That was what led Kozuchi to not retreat from the robbers and what led him to die. That worked. As did Onoki beating the ground so hard with his fists that it left bloodstains on the pavement. That worked really well. As of the whole framing of that scene with the rain falling down, all of that shit, good fucking shit there. I really do get Onoki. That's the main thing to take out of this episode and the two previous, is that we really get this full picture of Onoki in the years after the war, which is really important to understanding how, Onoki of Naruto has become Onoki of Boruto. Even if honestly I could understand Onoki of Naruto becoming Onoki of Boruto, given what we see about his desperation for peace and end to war, even without Kozuchi, even with the story we were already told, I would understand why he would lead to creating the Akuta. That all makes sense to me already. Even maybe his hard-linedness about it, even opposing Kurotsuchi, that might not have quite have made a whole lot of sense without this reveal, but it still would have worked either way. But anyway, with this, the mysterious scientist, who somehow, I'm going to talk about this for a quick second, somehow has a white Zetsu on hand. I'm curious if we're going to see anything else from him, or if he's just a generic Dr. Wily lookalike. But anyway, he has this white Zetsu on hand that gives Onoki the, I guess, cells he needed to create clones. I guess is what happened there. The process of a CUDA manufacture is not exactly gone into detail here, but whatever, it's fine. But anyway, as Onoki is doing all this, he keeps saying it's a part of Kozuchi's wish. Kozuchi's will is what he would have wanted. And like, I feel like I'm missing something, because I don't remember Kozuchi's wish even vaguely relating, like, anything Kozuchi said being able to be interpreted as, I want you to create a bunch of mindless soldiers to do the fighting for the people. You know, that doesn't quite seem to jive with what Kozuchi was saying. But whatever. Anyway, after that, we get into more of the details of the synthetic production. We find out that Ku was just a clone of Onoki, a younger clone, and not modeled after a dead child, or like what Kozuchi would have been like if he had grown up, or anything like that. That really gets through all of Onoki's story in this episode. Onoki wants people to not die. Actually, in a way, it kind of, I finally caught up with Alicization. I'll have the new episode review out probably by tomorrow at the latest. Probably tomorrow, actually, not tonight. And in episode 6, I think, of SAO Alicization, there's this bit between, spoilers for that, minor spoilers, won't be too big a deal though, where Asuna and Kikuoka are having this debate about the value of the lives of the Flecklights. The artificial souls that Kikuoka has copied onto computer programs in order to, like, pilot drones in place of human soldiers. These two situations are very, very similar. Whereas Boruto takes a fantasy stance and SAO takes a sci-fi stance to this question, or sci-fi lens to this question. They're very similar situations. You know, in both situations, someone has created a bunch of artificial people to fight so that real people don't have to. And then another character, whether that be Boruto or Asuna, is like, but aren't those people still people? Do they still have wills and identities? And in Onoki just straight out says, no, they don't. That's all a lie. Kikuoka at least admits that they do, and is like, but I just kind of don't care. You know, the real people matter more than these artificial people. And that's something I might get into when SAO gets back to that plot line. When I start doing those videos tomorrow. Yay. Anyway, back to the actual back to the content you came to see. It's not a Gracer video without tangents, you know. Anyway, we get all this, and all this moralizing is great and all, and, you know, Onoki goes on this whole rant about how, like, you know, it's all going to be peaceful, and no one will die anymore, and it'll be great, and be wonderful, and yada yada yada. But you compare that with shots of Ku and the Okuda army, you know, wreaking a havoc in the Stone Village, getting 5 random sacrifices to rip their hearts out and place in the synthetics. It's kind of, I guess that Onoki doesn't know that, and I imagine that's very much going to be the point of Onoki's character arc going forward. What I don't want to happen, I'll get to this in a little bit, I'll get into the bulk of this point in a little bit. The conflict between Onoki and Boruto is, like, whether or not the synthetics are alive or if they're just weapons. I kind of alluded to that in my SAO comparison. What I don't want is for all of that meaty debate, the good stuff of this arc, just kind of get tossed out the window when Onoki realizes that it's not as peaceful as he wanted it to be. I don't want the focus to shift from our synthetics people to we have to stop these people from killing people. You know, that's not what I want to happen. I want the focus to still stay on that really interesting philosophical question of like the rights of AI, and if you want to make a real world comparison to it, the rights of sufficiently advanced AI, I should say, or the rights of the synthetics in this version. But speaking of synthetic, I'm curious as to the distinction of fabrication, which Onoki calls them, and synthetic. I don't speak Japanese, so maybe it's just a Crunchyroll translation thing. The Crunchyroll like swap what word they're using to translate between this episode and the last. But last week we saw the synthetics themselves call themselves synthetic, and Onoki calls them fabrications. And those two words are very, very different. Synthetic just means artificial, man-made, not natural. Fabrication means fake. And there's a difference between artificial and just fake. You know, Onoki does not see the synthetics as human. He sees them as tools of war, and so he calls them fabrications. They are fake versions of humans. The synthetics see themselves as people, especially the four henchmen. Ku is wrapped up in Onoki's mindset enough that I think Ku might actually see himself as a fabrication, but he still calls himself a synthetic, at least when he's around the other synthetics. Had a point with this. So anyway, yeah, I lost my train of thought there. Sorry, I completely blanked there. Anyway, my point being, I think that if they are calling each other two different things, that's really interesting. I really hope it's not just Crunchyroll messing with the translations, because that would be a huge disappointment. If they each have different names of each other, that's fucking huge. I love it. But anyway, then we finally get to the philosophical crux of the arc that I've been alluding to throughout the video. Are the synthetics really alive, or are they just tools? And Onoki goes as far as to extend that to Mitsuki, and that's where Boruto goes from kind of like being on the fence about all this to being like, fuck you, how dare you say Mitsuki is not a full person. I know Mitsuki, he is not a full person. And that kind of lends into Mitsuki's arc, Mitsuki's character arc in the Mitsuki arc, and like, are his thoughts genuinely his, or were they implanted by Orochimaru? We'll see how all these themes connect going forward. I definitely feel like we're definitely moving into the end game of the arc. But yeah. So I imagine the whole debate, Onoki's insistent belief that the synthetics aren't people, is going to come to a huge head when he inevitably turns Ku down on getting new hearts. Because Onoki can just make more synthetics. But the synthetics, I don't think, want to be new. I think they're happy with their lives, as happy as they can be living in the cave, but you know what I mean. Y'all know what I mean. And so when Onoki inevitably is like, no, you can't get human hearts, I'm not sure he's going to survive. You know? Given Boruto's interesting relationship to Filler, Onoki might die here. I could see Onoki getting killed by like Kako. You know, if Kako takes Onoki back to the Tsuchikage office and Ku is like, hey, can we kill these guys so that we can survive? And Onoki inevitably is like, no. Kako might just like fucking off him right there. I could see that happening. Probably not next week, because I imagine next week's going to focus entirely on the Boruto versus Kako fight, as well as the Sarada, Chocho, and Inojin versus Kirara that we see alluded to in the next time trailer. But yeah, I think that's really all I have to say for this week's episode. Kako tries to pick up Onoki, and the episode ends. All in all, this was a damn good episode. After spending the past couple episodes with Boruto and Onoki very slowly getting to like be on the same page, it was all undone once Boruto learned how little Onoki cared for the synthetics. Feels so true to his character. It's so good. Such great work this week. And now, with the final battle lines drawn and Boruto thoroughly opposed to Onoki's ideals, I think we're moving into the end game. You know, I know this arc is going to continue into the new year, but like probably not. It'll probably end in February, I imagine. There are still 5 bad guys to fight, plus Onoki, depending on where he falls in all this. Who knows? But we're definitely moving into what I feel like is the final stage of the arc. Any more than this, all of the thinking has pretty much been done. There isn't a whole lot of philosophizing or moralizing left to do with the pieces this arc has given us. And so all that's really left is to let the battles let the character interactions speak through the battles, I guess. So that, yeah. Next time, we're finally getting back to the action as Boruto is fighting Tako and the rest of the Mitsuki Retrieval Squad. Sans Shikidai, who is still holed up in the Stone Village, goes up against Kurara. So that's really all I have to say for this week's episode. Hope you all enjoyed the episode as much as I did, and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!